Here's a question for you. What would it take for this to fail? Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining me on Yankee Stacking. I really appreciate it. I'm going to talk about something a little bit more serious today. A topic that, well, quite frankly, there are a lot of other macroeconomic type channels that would do a much better job than I would. Actually, one of them is Nat's channel at Silver Fortune. If you've never checked out Silver Fortune, you really do need to see that channel. But I do want to spend a few minutes talking about what a dollar collapse would mean, or what could possibly cause it. A dollar collapse is when the value of the US dollar, in this case the 20, plummets. So anybody holding dollar denominated assets would try to sell them at any cost. And that includes foreign governments too, who own dollar denominated assets. When a crash occurs, everybody's going to want to get out. So I'm going to tell you that there are three things that I see, three conditions, if you will, that I think must be in place before a dollar collapse. First, I believe there must be an underlying weakness. And that, I think, is the situation we're in right now. I believe our currency is fundamentally weak. Even though it's increased a little bit since, say, 2013, 2014, about 25% or so, there's an increased chance that our US dollar is going to decline, that the value of the dollar is going to slide. The second condition that I think needs to be in place is there has to be a viable currency alternative to this stuff. Maybe it's the euro, even though they're going through a crisis. Maybe it's cryptocurrencies in the future. But there needs to be another option, another viable currency that will take the place of the dollar. The dollar became what's called the reserve currency in 1973. I was 7 years old when President Nixon abandoned the gold standard. Gold used to back our money. It used to actually say at the top that it was backed by gold and silver. That ended in 1973. And did you know that as a global currency, the dollar is used for over 40% of all cross-border transactions? That over 40%. That means that central banks must hold the dollar in their reserves to pay for those transactions. So as a result, over 60% of these foreign currency reserves are in dollars. Why? To do transactions, to buy oil, the petrodollar. That's what that means. They have to convert their currency into dollars in order to make purchases of oil. One thing that is changing around the petrodollar is that Iran, Russia, and China have formed a triad of support around a petro yuan. The yuan for China is their way out. Think of it this way. Imagine a man from America and a man from China stranded on an island. The American decides the best course of action for him would be to sit on a blanket on the sand and wait for the Chinese man to gather up all the food, cook it, bring it to him, and let him consume it. He does this really well. In fact, he gains a lot of weight over the years, stranded on this island. The American really doesn't want to do much. So what he does is he grabs little seashells around him as he sits on the beach. He then hands them to the Chinese man and says, "Here, these are IOUs for you. Every time you bring me food, I'm going to give you another seashell for your work." Well, okay, says the Chinese man, and then says, "But wait, you are going to pay me with real money when we get off this island." "Oh, sure," says the American. "Absolutely, these are just IOUs. I'll give you shells now, And then later, once we're off the island, I'll pay you for real. Well, this goes on and on and on for years, right? The American gets fatter and fatter and enjoys just laying there on the sand. But after a while, the Chinese man says, what am I doing? I do all the work. I'm getting a pile of shells. I don't even know where to put them all now. I got mounds of them. I really don't think we're getting off this island. And quite frankly, I'm getting tired of just feeding this fat American. I wish there was another way around this. The American says, well, whoa, wait a minute. You need me. I'm the one eating all your food. Without me, who's going to eat it? That's somewhat the scenario that we find ourselves in with China. The United States and China are in a death grip. China needs us to consume. We need China to make all our stuff. But at some point, Chinese are going to realize, and I believe have already realized, the Chinese government at least, that this scenario is not going to work. We are never getting off this island. And I think China knows that there needs to be other ways for them to get value out of their manufacturing and their efforts. I do think that it's happening. I think it's already started between Russia and Iran. China, they've formed a petro-yuan this year. It's starting to gain traction. It's nowhere near with the petrodollar. It's not going to take over anytime soon, but you can tell that China wants to break free of the reliance on the big fat American consuming everything that they make. And it's not just China. Japan and other countries are totally aware of their vulnerability. They're selling more to other Asian countries too, and they're gradually becoming wealthier. So the first condition that could cause a dollar collapse, underlying weakness. The second condition, a viable currency alternative. But there needs to be a third condition that will actually cause a collapse. And that is a loss of confidence. This whole thing with cash, currency, is built around confidence. Yes, there's confidence in other assets like gold and silver, property, real estate, stocks. All that does depend on some level of confidence. But there is very little historic basis to be able to put your confidence in something like that versus thousands of years of other assets. So what would cause a huge drop in dollar confidence? Well, there's a lot of reasons why that might happen. There are bubbles everywhere that could pop that would cause an absolute disaster where people would rush away from the US dollar. The moral hazard that's in our markets, the debt, personal debt, the corporate debt, government debt, is going to come back to haunt us. And I don't believe that we're going to be prepared for the next one. It's going to hit hard. I don't think it's imminent. I don't think it's going to happen next month. It could, but I doubt it. I believe that during Trump's administration, the odds are elevated, quite high actually. And I do believe that in my lifetime, I will see a complete collapse. Something epic, something that I pray doesn't happen. I know this was a rather somber episode on Yankee Stacking, but I would love to hear your comments, your thoughts. Maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you think things are a lot better than they are. However you want to comment, please leave a comment. I will respond to each and every one of them. And as always, I want to tell you that no matter what happens, I hope your day is A-OK.